Why do most people fail to get jacked naturally?
Because they don't think about getting stronger. They chase the pump and they don't chase strength. That's like if you want the most honest, concise answer possible, they don't think about training and they don't understand basic human biology and physiology. If you simply just focus on getting stronger and strengthening foundational human movement patterns, anybody can be strong, lean, and jacked naturally. Anybody. You're a testament to that, right? I'm also a testament to that.
Where do you think that went wrong with that? Education used to be about lifting heavy iron, big compound basics, progressive overload, and it changed over the last 5-ish years to this really science-based, optimal, evidence-based approach instead of just getting strong.
I'll tell you where it went wrong is because these content creators are really intelligent people and they saw a gap in the content and they realized the basics don't sell. Saying the same message, do heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, weighted strict pull-ups, weighted dips. That is the truth. Okay. But you can only say the truth so many times. And in my opinion, these content creators, they come at it from an angle where they're not doing it to actually really help people. They're doing it more to serve themselves. And so they can see a gap in the content and they realize, if they, put some kind of spin about, this is backed by science. You got to do a long length partial, or you got to do stretch mediated hypertrophy. You have to worry about RPE or RIR. People, they soak it up. All right. And so they want to see that kind of stuff. And then if you use, credentials, as a platform, and I don't want to name names, but I think you understand who I'm talking about. All right. And they literally will build a following on that. And unfortunately, most people, they maybe lack a bit of common sense or just education. And they think, this guy is a scientist, or this guy references all these studies in his content, so it must be true. And all it really is it distracts so many lifters and men from the truth. That's why I think science-based lifting has really gained popularity. I hope now it's kind of on the downtrend because people are actually realizing the real science is the real shit. It's heavy compound lifts. It's training like you train. Okay. That is the real science. And the truth is the truth. And so these guys, they saw a content gap and they exploited that gap because they're all about watch time, viewer retention, and getting the click. And I mean, as a YouTuber, I know you know what I'm talking about.
It's unfortunate because the whole idea that, we need to invent different exercises, invent different training styles. There's new people coming into fitness every hour, every single day. And that same message, even if it gets repetitive, it gets dry. I look around in gyms and I don't think we're saying this message enough because I'm looking at a lot of people prioritizing things that don't have as high value, like people jumping into machines and cables for 90% of their routine. The free weight section is really dry over there.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you understand. And this is why I think your platform is so valuable because you're making the world a better place. And that's why I really resonate with you. Okay. And you walk the walk too. It's evident. Okay. Like in my opinion, Daniel, and I'm not just trying to like pump you up, but you have one of the most impressive physiques on YouTube. Okay. It is insane. It speaks for itself. So, and I presume that you're lifetime natural and you've done it the right way. And me too. And so that's why I have so much admiration and respect. And I've seen you build your channel from, correct me if I'm wrong, did you start your channel when you were a teenager?
Yeah. So it was 2010 when I was 17.
Dude, and how old are you now, may I ask?
33 years young.
Dude, it's incredible. Okay. It's just incredible. Like people don't understand how hard it is to be a content creator. Okay. And the way you make
and also just training naturally, period, because there is the temptation of the other side. I'm not versed in what that entails, but this conversation today is going to be about getting jacked naturally, what that entails with expectations and what you can realistically achieve. But it's going to take some damn hard work. And that is what the message with science-based lifting, optimal, different variations, different ways of doing things, Not always, but often it's the easier route to make it seem novel and also the promise of fast gains. There's nothing fast about it, and there's nothing easy about training hard.
No, agreed, man. I think it's a watered down, diluted message that appeals to the masses because most people, they want the shortcut. They want the easy way. Okay. And that really bothers me. And that's why, dude, I've made the same video 10 times. Okay. And my message, I'm not going to water it down. Like, I don't care about having the biggest YouTube channel. I care about building a loyal audience and actually providing people value and educating people, as do you. So, the truth is the truth. And it's gotten really fuzzy, the past 5 years with all this science-based nonsense. And it's distracting and confusing more people than it's actually helping. And so that's why it bothers me. And that's why I'm not afraid to speak out against it and just tell the truth.
For people that are getting into fitness or have been training for a few years, what advice do you have for sifting through some of the BS and finding, content creators or educators that are actually providing substance that you should follow?
Well, hopefully the YouTube algorithm will do its job. And the best advice that I could give anyone is just think about how the human body works naturally. Okay, the human body is one interconnected system. Okay, and it should be trained as a system. Get out of that body part way of thinking or the bodybuilding way of thinking. Stop compartmentalizing your training. Train your body as a system. And the way I think about it is I really simplify it into basically 7 foundational human movement patterns. You always want to prioritize those movement patterns, but that's always going to be some kind of iteration of a squat, a deadlift or a hinge, a horizontal push, a horizontal pull, a vertical push, a vertical pull. And you can really cover all of that with a squat, a deadlift, a bench press, an overhead press, a strict pull up, a strict dip. And then I'd also consider like a heavy horizontal pull, most notably like a seal row, or you could do your ring rows, inverted ring rows, those two. And that's how you think about training. And if you just simply strengthen those foundational movement patterns over a long period of time, what's going to happen is you're going to become a very strong, lean, muscular individual. And most importantly, you'll be healthy as well.
Basically, free weights, barbells, dumbbells, calisthenics movements, weighted if you're strong enough to do those. And I love this advice, this overall principle, because it does constrain your exercise options. There's only so many ways you can do those movement patterns with calisthenics and free weights, which isn't a bad thing.
And those are positive constraints.
Positive constraints. Why? Because you actually progressive overload.
Yes, sir. That's exactly it. And I've observed how you train. I've watched your message. And like I said, the reason I respect you is because you're one of the few guys that speaks the truth. And you are one of the few men that actually understand how this works. So yes, that's true. But it's positive constraints. And if you simply simplify your training, like in my own training, I do literally about 10 exercises. That was it. That's all I do. And because I know that's what works, that's what gives me the best return on my training investment. And so that's what I stick to. Okay. You're not going to see me doing a bunch of cable lateral raises or working on a bunch of fancy different machines. I'm not saying those are bad, but they just generally do not offer you as much inherent value as lifting free weights, specifically barbells, dumbbells, and calisthenics. And that's just the truth. And so why am I going to waste my time doing low value exercises, doing a bunch of junk volume when I could be prioritizing the basic compounds, using progressive overload over a long period of time and strengthening those movement patterns? To me, it's very obvious, but most people don't understand that.
And the key there is strengthening the same movement patterns, because if you get into a big commercial gym that has all these exercise options, you can just dance around every workout. You'll be sore, but are you progressing? People
get distracted by shiny objects. And that's what bothers me. That's why this is my content studio / my home gym. That's why I have minimal equipment. I have a rack, I have plates, I got a barbell, I have adjustable bench, I have a seal row bench. I do have a lat pull down and a cable support, cable low row, but that's really more for my wife so she can do personal training with her clients. I don't actually spend a lot of time using those machines in the corner. I just think about what gives you the best return on your training investment. And after doing this for nearly 20 years, I've been training since I was a kid. I've just realized, man, like how simple this stuff really is. And it's just about getting better and better and better at the basics. Okay. And you can always be getting better at the basics.
And with those basics, you're only doing 10-ish movement patterns in those different exercises. What's your strategy when you plateau or your progress stalls? How do you keep those moving upwards or just make them fun without doing some other wacky exercise?
So I'll change up the progression or I'll change up the strength cycle. I'll give you a very simple example. So right now I'm trying to work my way back up to a 3-plate bench, 140 kgs. Okay. And so right now I'm at 122 kgs on that. And I'm just following a very simple strength cycle where I'll use the same weight every week. And once I hit a certain amount of sets and reps and I master that weight, I'm literally going to add 1 kilo to the bar. So if you want like a concrete example, tomorrow I'm doing a workout. I'm doing 4 sets of 3 and then 4 sets of 2 with 122 kilos on my bench. If I hit that and I get all my weights and reps, the next week I'm going to do 5 sets of 3, 3 sets of 2. Then the next week, 6 sets of 3, 2 sets of 2. And then I'll work my way up to where I eventually get 8 sets of 3. Once I get 8 sets of 3, then I'm going to go add another kilo to the bar, and I'm going to drop back down and I'm going to hit 8 sets of 2. Then I'll work all my way up to 8 sets of 3. It's a very slow, gradual progression, but me, I'm not a very good bench presser. And so it's going to take me a lot of time. I just understand that. Like the body is very slow to adapt. It takes time, especially if you're doing it naturally. It takes time for muscles, tendons, ligaments, connective tissue to adapt. You can understand that and appreciate that with calisthenics. I know you can.
Oh, most definitely. And that's a expectation that people have to understand, because as you become an intermediate or more advanced, the rate of progress becomes at almost a snail's pace. It can be really depressing, man, if I'm honest with you, because I'm doing 3 plates on that weighted chin up, and it takes me a good, 12 weeks before I'm adding maybe 2.5 kilos to that same rep range. But that's the reality of it.
It is, man. Like in the more advanced you get, the harder and longer that you have to work for less and less. And if you're doing this the right way, naturally, you have to accept you're going to have to work way harder for way longer for way less. But let that be, that should be gratifying, because if you're making progress after training for 20 years and you're doing it naturally, even that incremental progress that you make, it's very gratifying, because those are gains that you've worked for. Those are gains that you can actually keep. And man, if you're on steroids or you're on gear, those are borrowed gains on borrowed time. You didn't work for those. And so that's why I preach, a natural lifestyle and the way to train. And even me, I'm 38. So I'm 5 years older than you. I'm still getting stronger on my squat and my deadlift. Whatever I focus on, I can still get stronger at it, but training's very specific. So whatever you want to be good at, have specificity in your training, focus on that. Understand it's going to take, time, but anybody can get stronger. Like, how long did it take you to do a 25 kg weighted strict muscle up on a bar?
That was a almost 4-month process.
Yeah, dude, it's 4 months. Okay. Took a really long time. Like, I'd be lucky if I could do 10 kgs with a weighted muscle up on a bar. Okay. But if I wanted to get better at it, I know I could. I would just have to train for it. And I would have to train for it probably at least 2 or 3 days a week. And I'd have to get quite specific and quite focused on training that movement pattern. But it's trainable. You can do it. Anybody can do it. You just have to have the right approach. You have to be patient.
There's 2 things you touched on there I really like. It's drilling home specificity. If you see someone really good at an exercise, if it's technical, they're just really strong at it for 1 RM or low reps, they're probably dedicating most of their training resources to that, focus on it for a while. And also, what I love about your philosophy is getting jacked naturally, and the appearance of aesthetics is a byproduct of focusing on strength. And I love it. It's such a healthy mindset, because if you go into your workouts or with the mindset of, I'm just going for aesthetics purely, as a natty, you're going to get pretty depressed, bro, because you're going to look pretty similar for a long, long time. And if all you're going off is the mirror and what you're looking like visually, it's just not as good as being like, what is my bench? What is my squat? What is my deadlift? What's my weighted chin up? Are the numbers increasing? And use that as a reflection of what your body comp looks like. If you're getting stronger, it tends to correlate with the size.
And the way I describe this to people, especially clients or new clients, I ask them this question. I say, do you think your body will look and feel differently if over the next 6-12 months you add 50 kilos to your squat, 50 kilos to your deadlift, you put on 20, 30 kilos to your bench press, you take your strict pull-ups from 10 reps to 20 reps, then you can actually start doing 10 weighted strict pull-ups and weighted dips with 25% of your body weight. If you achieve those strength numbers or those metrics over the next 6 or 12 months, will your body look differently? Of course it will. Okay? It's really that simple in my opinion. It's like, man, strengthen foundational human movement patterns gradually over a long period of time. And if you reach those numbers, dude, it's impossible for you not to be a strong, lean, jacked, and most importantly, healthy individual.
And there's spectrums to it. If you're chasing pure strength on 1RMs, you're probably doing most of your training on that lift with minimal accessories to prioritize that. But you can kind of have the best of both worlds if you're training with like a strength rep range that is pretty close to failure, plus you're adding in some compound accessories. And now we know it's not even like, oh, you got to do 8 to 15 reps for hypertrophy. You can grow off those low reps.
So you can grow off sets of 3, sets of 2s. Okay.
100%.
Absolutely. Like when I was building my squat up to close to 500 pounds, dude, I wasn't doing that for obviously reps or even the percentages. I was hitting sets of 3 or below. And dude, my legs grew, my core got thicker. Okay. I gained muscle, and I'm not doing high reps, but I'm handling pretty, heavy, respectable loads. And dude, that's what your body responds to. Most natural lifters, the best thing they need to understand, or the most important thing they need to understand, is how muscle actually grows. It's via mechanical tension, lifting progressively heavier weights. And there's other ways to do it. There's other ways to do progressive overload. You can add in tempos, pauses. You can make certain lifts harder. I mean, calisthenics, you'd be a prime example of that. But if you're talking about barbell training specifically, and if you add 25 kilos to your bench press, do you think your chest and your triceps are going to grow? 100%, man. It's obvious,
And Tanner, that's the biggest shift I've made probably in the last year or two, is how important the intensity of the weight lifted or how challenging the exercise is, if it's a calisthenic movement, is for overall training, overall strength, because you can get into that volume trap, adding a third, adding a fourth set, but your reps in reserve is just so much because you've got all this volume. And it just comes back to, what don't I want to do? I don't want to put the weight up on the bar or do a harder version of an exercise because it's hard. But then you do that for long enough, and then you look, wow, I'm jacked as a byproduct of that.
And like, dude, you don't have to. And you made a great video about this the other day where I think you said you've condensed your training down to basically 2 hard working sets per exercise.
For the heavier stuff, yeah, because it's like, I found that when I was doing, just say for example, I'm doing 5x5 on a chin up with 50 kilos. Do you know how much like CNS fatigue that has with the grip and all that? So I just found I couldn't progress. After like 4 weeks, I'd have to drop the weight because I just couldn't recover with all that training.
And it's like, that's even the systemic stress, doing like heavy squats and deadlifts, in my opinion, is even more stressful to the organism, than doing a weighted chin up or a weighted dip. So I do know, like I recently hit a workout where I did 5 sets of 5 at 187 kilos. So that's like about 10 or 12 pounds. That's pretty heavy, and like, that's all I could do in that workout. I did 5 sets of 5 back squats at that weight. And then I was so fatigued and like just drained. I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't even do a pause squat, or I couldn't do a split squat. I was done.
Now imagine someone goes, well, a good bodybuilding workout, Tanner, would involve that, followed by some leg extension, do some hip thrusts. You got to isolate your quads, leg extensions, hamstring curls. What about the calves?
Yeah, dude. I don't think like that, again, because that's not you're compartmentalizing your training. And as a natural lifter, you have to get out of that body part way of thinking. Okay. Unless you're just hyper focused on being a natural bodybuilder, then
Great distinction.
I do think, those nuances, can come into play, but I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't claim to be a bodybuilder. My physique is purely a product of getting strong. And that's why I love calisthenics too, because I love being really strong with a barbell, but I also love being pretty competent, moving my own body weight through space. Because if you can do weighted strict muscle ups, you can do strict handstand push-ups, you can do a planche, or you can hold a legitimate L-sit. You know what that means? That means you're going to be freaking lean, and you're not going to be fat and overweight and unhealthy. And there's a lot of lifters that are brainwashed. Like all they want to do is squat, bench, and deadlift. They just want to lift huge, heavy loads. Dude, but those guys couldn't do 10 strict pull-ups to save their life. To me, that guy's not strong.
And this is where the future of fitness, what I'm trying to promote, isn't one or the other, because we get very tribal in our communities. We've got to either lift or do calisthenics, or we're only doing cardio. But it's like when you have that mix of both and you're strength training with calisthenics and with weights, you can pick whatever movement pattern in those main ones you listed, and you've got progressive overload for life. You'll be as big and strong as you'd ever hope to be.
That's what I'm saying exactly too, because like, even though I'm a respectably strong guy with a barbell, like, and I say this with humility, but I've squatted 500 pounds or 227 kilos. I've deadlifted 280 kilos. That's a triple body weight deadlift for me. That's respectable for anyone, especially if you're natural. And I could still get stronger at those if I really wanted to focus on it. I could, and the same holds true, with any of those other foundational movements. It could be the overhead press. It could be a weighted pull-up, a weighted dip, whatever it might be. And I can still, even at 38, after training for 20 years, I can still get stronger at those if I really want to dial in and focus on one of those things. It just depends on whatever phase of training that I'm in and whatever my goal is at the moment. And that changes with time to keep training interesting and sustainable.
That's the sign of a good exercise. Can I progress it almost indefinitely? Because you get on some machines, you can max it out, then you'd have to put a gym pin in, and it's hard to like compare machines too.
Agreed. Are you familiar with Mark Ripito, Daniel?
Yeah, OG 5x5. Let's go.
Absolutely, man. So that guy is one of the most intelligent men. He's like literally the godfather of barbell training. Okay, and the guy's, in my opinion, he's a genius. I don't know if he's a genius, but he just has common sense. And he said something to me when I was on his podcast that I was just like, wow. He literally said, dude, how long can you get stronger at your squat or deadlift? Dude, you can 10, 20 years. And you can. How long can you actually get stronger at a leg extension or a preacher curl? Okay?
You're capped pretty quickly.
6-8 weeks, precisely. So that's why you want to always focus on the big compound lifts, movement patterns where your entire body is working together as a system. Like, dude, you could get stronger at your deadlift and your squat for the next probably 15 years, legitimately.
Oh yeah. And it's the limitation of it almost becomes practical as opposed to what the equipment can go to. What I mean is, if I'm focusing so much resources on upper body calisthenics and weight training, I can't be doing legs 3 times a week.
No, absolutely.
If I wanted to get my squat up, that's what you do.
Yeah, it would be counter. Like, that's why I've kind of accepted the fact I'm probably never going to be doing a freestanding handstand push. I'm not going to do, an L sit to a handstand. I'm not going to hit a planche, and I'm okay with that. All right, because in my opinion, and what I consider to offer me the most value is like, dude, I want to have strong legs. I want to have a strong back. So I'm going to do heavy ass squats. I'm going to do heavy ass deadlifts. And, as a gymnast or a calisthenics athlete, dude, having heavy legs is probably not conducive for your calisthenic goals.
And that's great you've made that point, because we all have to come to peace with what we want to be good at, because the trade-off is there. And if you don't accept that, which I've had that in the past, I've been like, I want to get really good at the calisthenics skills, but also do, a ton of like weightlifting exercises and also have a lot of range of motion, like doing splits and all this crazy stuff. That just gets to a point where you just don't have enough recovery to do everything. You start spinning your wheels, and you have to dedicate blocks to whatever domain of fitness that you're doing.
Yeah, your body has a finite amount of resources, and it's up to you on how you allocate those resources. So, for me personally, like I want to be really strong with a barbell. There's certain numbers that I always want to be able to do, and then I want to be at least respectably competent, doing weighted pull-ups, weighted dips. I want to be able to do 10 unbroken strict bar muscle ups. I don't really care if I go beyond that. I'm probably never going to hit a 25 kg weighted strict muscle up like you. I understand that. I've got it. Right? It's just I know what makes me happy, and I don't know if you'll understand this analogy, but I really enjoyed your podcast with Eric Bugenhagen. I really like Eric Bugenhagen too. That guy's a badass. I feel like he's on this one crazy end of the spectrum, just horse cocking, crazy heavy weights. You're kind of on this other end of the spectrum of just being elite at calisthenics and body weight, and actually lifting some pretty respectable free weights as well. I kind of find myself somewhere kind of in the middle. Like I'm not horse cocking super heavy weights like Eric Bugenhagen. I'm not doing crazy weighted strict muscle ups or planches, but I can at least do a little bit of both. And so I'm kind of like in the middle of that. But that's how I train. That's what makes me happy. So that's what I choose to do.
It's clearly resonating with a lot of people, Tanner, because you've got quite a substantial following across all your different platforms. And I think people are really connecting with this idea of simplicity, because we've gone the extremes of you need an optimal program. What's the workout split? That really matters. Your exercise choice. If you're not doing this bicep curl, Tanner.
Yeah, if I'm not doing the Asian curl, or whatever they want to call it, yeah, it's nonsense. Like, what's funny? And I think you'll appreciate this. I literally tell if someone asks me how to grow their arms, I'm like, I just ask them, can you do 20 strict chin-ups? Almost every time said no. I'm like, all right, well, dude, before you ever worry about freaking doing these isolation, gimmick bicep exercises, why don't you go, build up the capacity to do 20 perfect strict unbroken chin-ups and just watch what happens to your biceps.
I say a very similar thing, even though I know that it is a compound exercise, and yeah, sure, if you isolated, you can maybe milk out some more gains if the isolations are added to your compound workout. But I always get asked, hey, Daniel, what do you do for your shoulders? You've got like quite capped.
Your upper body physique is elite. That's why I'm so impressed. And yeah, I wanted to ask you, what's your height and weight, by the way?
I'm 6 foot. That's 183 and 84.5 kilos.
Dang, dude. So you're a big guy. You're a big guy for calisthenics.
And that's what I've always enjoyed is I don't fit the stereotype. I'm not a 5 foot gymnast that's 60 kilos. And I think it resonates with people because it's like the average person wants to get into calisthenics. They find it interesting to learn these skills, but not everyone fits the optimal stature. And it's like, well, you can take your body a really far way. And this idea of being optimistic with what you can achieve is something that I'm really passionate about, because I think we set our standards so low. Like I see a lot of people who do look like me and can perform stuff that I can, but it's just, you need to like raise what you think that you can do and be surrounded by positive influences. Because if I didn't see this when I was 17, there's no way in my own backyard I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to go and put 3 plates on the chin up or 3 plates on the dip and just rep it out. I saw other animals across the world doing this too.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why, again, I love your message, because man, you're inspiring a whole new generation of lifters and in calisthenics, athletes, and you're doing it the right way. And it's inspiring to me. And I'll watch your content. I'm like, holy shit. Like this dude's doing a perfect strict one arm chin up or pull up. And it's insane to me. I'm like, man, if I really wanted to do that, I probably could. If I really wanted to dial in and focus on it, or I could at least get stronger.
You might look at what I've done, and that's coming up to 16 years of training. If you were to be like, okay, I want the handstand push-up, and you put that as your focus for 2 of your upper body workouts per week at the very beginning, and you don't do too much other fluff, the same principles that you've just described to me, I have no doubt, because your background in CrossFit, you've got good body awareness, like you just get the balance and the skill. Of course you could, man.
I could. Yeah. Just like I said, it's just a matter of my goals, and dude, I've actually been I've noticed I've been doing this for so long. I've kind of seen myself kind of go through different phases of training and what keeps me interested, and I've actually been kind of re-getting into more calisthenics. That's why I'm doing more dips. I've always been doing weighted pull-ups, but I probably want to get back into like some weighted strict muscle ups again, just because it's fun and I know I can get better at it if I train it. I just have to understand, or I have to accept the fact that, all right, if I start focusing on my handstand push-up or my weighted strict muscle
the
up,
weight training is going to take a back burner.
Yeah, exactly. Like my bench probably isn't going to move. My overhead press is probably not going to move. But dude, I understand that. There's always going to be a give and take when you're doing it, if you're doing it the right way, which is naturally. And I get that.
This episode is sponsored by Fitness FAQs. Learn how to master calisthenics with the best bodyweight workouts. Use the coupon code podcast20 at checkout to get 20% off when shopping at Fitness FAQs. Hurry, take advantage of this discount and enjoy the progress. I think cycling in between these goals, for like dedicating a year to a project, like I'm going to work on this handstand push-up for a year, and then I can go back to weights for half a year, then I can come back to that. I don't think that your overhead press is going to get much weaker if you're smashing chest to wall handstand push-ups as hard as you possibly can.
For sure. No, it wouldn't. It may not progress, but I don't think it would get really any weaker. Precisely. I agree with that 100%. And like when I hit a triple body weight deadlift, you know what I did? I was deadlifting twice a week. I wasn't doing squats. I was purely focused on building up my deadlift and getting as strong as I can. I was training it. It was specific. And I achieved that actually within 9 months. I was able to add 100 pounds, over 100 pounds to my deadlift in 9 months. And I was working with a coach. And the coach, he happened to deadlift 800 pounds. So he knew what he was doing. You know, I've sought out and found an expert, someone that was better than me at what I was trying to do. And I learned from them. And that's why I think guys like yourself, you know, dare I say myself, if you have an area of expertise and you kind of really are an expert in that area, the best thing you can do is learn from those people that have already done what you are trying to do.
It's an interesting one when you're specializing. Sure, you can make that rate of progress and extent of progress. What I always can be battling with is when you want to be more well-rounded. Your numbers aren't going to go up that much. They're going to be relatively similar. You kind of be this jack of all trades, kind of master of none. Because as much as you're giving me some props for some of these feats, they're pretty good. But with gymflation that's happening now online, dear Lord, people know this too. It's like we're seeing people do dips with like 160 plus kilos. It's just, it blows my mind.
Me too. I've seen some of the guys you've talked about. Ian Barnsiegel. Do you know Ian Barnsiegel? That guy, I think, has been
Ian Barnsiegel. Yeah.
Barnsiegel, like that dude blows my mind. See, like how strong he is. And I just saw a piece of concept from him. Like the only 2 exercises he does for his body is literally dips and pull-ups. Dude, that guy is freaking jacked. You know, and it's to me, it's actually very impressive. It's inspiring, and it kind of reminds me too. Like, all right, man, I could probably even get by doing less. You know, it just depends on what I want to be good at. And because I came from a American football background, then I got into competing heavily into CrossFit at a professional level. You know, I was exposed to some gymnastic things that I kind of liked, you know, and so I kept training them because it's fun for me. So yeah, I am kind of not one of those jack of all trades, but I'm competent, you know, in a few different things. That a lot of guys, they'll be really good at one thing or they'll be really good at another thing. I'm like decent at a little bit of everything. It's kind of, you know, if that makes sense. And this is true too. When you try to be good at everything, you don't really do anything well.
Which is what we just said, which is what we said before. You're not going to take it to the highest level. But I think a lot of people can relate to this. It's that diminishing returns. Using the 25 kilo muscle up, for example, that required pretty specific training to go from 20 kilos to 25. Like with just general training, just weighted pull-ups and some muscle up practice, I could do 20 pretty quickly within that journey. But then it took me that 4 to 6 months to get 5 more kilos on the lift. There's people doing 50 kilo muscle ups. But in my mind, I'm just thinking, okay, I've learned what I needed through this specialization phase, dedication. All of your exercise have to be on point, focused towards one goal. But there's a point of diminishing returns afterwards, and you've got to choose that relative to your own goals. And for me, it's like, do I need to do 5 plates on the pull-up, on the dip? Not really. If I want to also do all these other exercises.
That's it, man. And precisely. And I got a question. those guys doing 50 kilo weighted strict muscle ups, are those guys 83 kilos? Are they even as big as you?
Probably not. They're probably not like diverse with their skill sets.
And so it's not really an apt comparison. It's not really comparing apples to apples, in my opinion. You're a big guy. Like, you're a big guy, even if you didn't do calisthenics, you're respectably big. 6 foot, 83 kilos. That's going to be hard to be an elite calisthenics athlete, probably being that big, just because, dude, your legs are pretty big too. That's
I am.
That's weight you're lifting. You know,
not a huge fan of doing the planche work these days because the quads and that distal loading.
Yeah, that's why I haven't been a huge fan of doing my L sits lately. Because, like, dude, holding up my legs and the crazy quad contraction and hip flexor contraction you get from those, that's hard, man. It's really hard. So
stick to some hanging leg raises where you can use a little bit of extra English to get you through.
Yeah, man, as long as I'm healthy, I'm strong, and I'm fit. I also really enjoy doing like really intense rowing intervals, because like being fit's very important to me. So
I've seen that your story posts where you're just dripping sweat like a madman is some of the most motivating fuel. When I see that on my feed and I'm just sitting there fresh out of a shower, I haven't worked out, I'm like, man, I gotta get moving here.
Yeah, well, it all just depends on, you know, what's important to you. And like I've just realized that. And so obviously your goals are different than mine, but whatever goals you have, dude, you've smashed those. And I love seeing that. So it's really, really cool. So like, you're one of the, I don't really like a lot of guys on YouTube, you know, but I watch a lot of YouTube. I love YouTube. Like, YouTube's changed my life.
The content game has changed a lot since I first started, and it's lost a lot of its rawness, authenticity, pureness. I miss myself personally just watching a dude upload a workout log. Gone are the days of watching that now, because
YouTube's really competitive. I mean, if you want to stand out, it's like, dude, you have to take your content really seriously, in my opinion, you know, because people are very particular about what they want to watch. And yeah, YouTube certainly evolved over the time. I do kind of feel like maybe there has been a little bit of a trend kind of back to more authentic, organic.
Yeah, it's coming slowly.
Sam Sulek is a great example of that. You know, just uploading his training blogs of him doing bodybuilding, you know, and he's a very charismatic guy. He's going to be fun to watch. I personally don't watch his content because I'm not into bodybuilding, but I understand why he's gotten 3 million subscribers in the past two or 3 years, you know, because bodybuilding is very, very popular with a lot of men. And he just puts himself out there. He trains really hard, and people do resonate with that. So I have a vlog channel where I upload some workouts, but I haven't taken it seriously. And I would like to get back to it. That might be something I might focus on, you know, in the next 1 or 2 years. Just more real, raw, organic, you know, training content, so people could actually really see the process. I was actually wanted to ask you, like, what is your approach to making content? Because, man, I've seen your stuff. Like, it's really high level. Like, you really go above and beyond. Like, the way you film content, the angles, the quality. I presume, you know, you don't slur or mince your words. Do you script all of that? Do you have a plan before you go in and film a video?
I do a mix of both. It's like, some videos will be a bit more off the cuff with just bullet points, and then I'll just crop certain bits if I'm rambling, or it's just I've repeated a point like 3 times. But otherwise, yeah, scripting it out of just, I guess, respect for other people's, just what they take away from it. Because, yeah, sure, I could chuck it on and talk for 40 minutes on a topic, but I might only be speaking 2 minutes of actual, you know.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting about that too, because like I find myself watching Eric Bugenhagen a lot. And his approach to content is completely the, you know, antithesis of something like what you do or even I do. Like, he just gets in his living room, you know, puts his iPhone up and just like riffs it completely off the cuff and just goes absolutely crazy. But he's so entertaining. And
he's always constrained by the time of his wife and daughter coming home for some reason.
I know. He's an anomaly, but you're right. Like, there's an audience for that. Like, I find myself oftentimes, like, when I finish work and I'm cooking myself some dinner, I've had a long day, I'll turn on Eric Bugenhagen just for pure entertainment. And there is a lot of good educational value out of that. And I think his message, it's more the mindset, you know, and the mentality is what's really resonated with me. I think that's what's resonated with a lot of other guys. Not to mention, he's, you know, really funny. He kind of has this alter ego or alter persona, almost like a character that he has, man, he owns it. And I think it's
he didn't get into the WWE for nothing.
No, precisely.
With that level of skill.
Yeah, I know. It's just funny, because when I saw you interviewed him, I was like, oh, that's got to be an awesome podcast, because these are two guys at the opposite ends of the spectrum, but they like and respect each other. And I thought that was really cool to see.
It's funny because people that just watch the, edited content of me, they might just assume that I'm just like maybe more scientific and just very like methodical with my training and everything's like well explained. But deep down, bro, I'm just a meathead. I love training as hard as I can, as much as I can. I got a background in physio and personal training, but at the end of the day, it's like I'm in the trenches. That's what matters most.
Are you still an active physiotherapist, or are you basically just kind of a content creator, online coach?
Doing this full time since 2018.
Yeah, dude, that's badass, man. I actually wanted to ask you about your setup too. Like do you have like a warehouse where you have your calisthenics? Dude, that's your dedicated workspace. And that's where you film.
Yes, I've never done a gym tour. I think I'm doing YouTube wrong because I'm not capitalizing on.
You should. People have asked me to do that. And like, I'm about to pack this up and I'm going to set up shop in Texas, but I wanted to make a video for that. I would love to see your setup and how you've done it. It's actually inspiring to me because I want to do something similar. The
reason why I haven't done it is because it's so simple. Because it's not like, hey guys, welcome to my $250,000 gym. It's like a rack. There's pull-up bars, dip bars, rings. It's calisthenics based.
But dude, maybe that's what people need to see, Daniel. Okay? Maybe. I think it is, because dude, that's the truth. Like, you don't need a $1 million gym. You don't need every machine under the sun. And that's why I get irritated with these bigger creators, because they dilute and water down the message. And it's like they're making content for the sake of making content. And it irritates me. And it's like, but that's just, that's my opinion. And I at the same time, I understand where they're coming from.
It's commercialized.
They're commercialized. They're trying to appeal to the biggest audience possible. Okay. And you can say whatever you want about Jeff Nippard. I've certainly criticized him because I don't agree with his message, but I have a lot of respect for Jeff Nippard. I even have respect for Mike Israetel, because those guys haven't built what they've built without working really hard for a really long time. So I certainly do respect those guys. And I also look at it from the perspective that, all right, these guys are making content. They're putting out a message of health and fitness. So overall, their net impact on the world is actually incredibly positive. Okay. Like, if Jeff Nippard or Mike Israetel gets a guy to go into the gym and start lifting weights, that's a good thing.
Yeah. And I'll tell you where the disconnect is. Content or business period is always aimed at beginners, because they're the ones that don't have the knowledge and they're willing to spend money on products and services. Where it's frustrating for yourself and me is where, like, real enthusiasts with this stuff, like we know what it actually takes. So for us to see a raw, uncut video, like if I watched a video of you training for 40 minutes, I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Look how hard he's training. I want to hear his thought process. You're shifting some really heavy weight. When I post that content, it can alienate people because they can't relate to doing these movements.
I don't know, man, you've been incredibly successful. Like, I'm honored to be on your podcast, dude. You have over 2 million subscribers on your channel. Like, bro, you're big time. Okay. That's just the facts. I'm not trying to just, compliment you. I'm just stating facts. I look at that objectively. I noticed, because I started doing some vlogs on my channel, and what I noticed is I was kind of splitting up my audience. There's some people that want to watch the real raw training vlogs, but then there's other people, they want the more polished, short, condensed content that just delivers pure value and education in 7 minutes. So what I'm going to do, I've actually created a second channel that's basically just training vlogs. And I haven't focused on it lately because I'm just still focused on building my main channel, but it's a consideration maybe for you, dude. If you wanted to post training vlogs, dude, there's men just like me and you that would love to see that. Okay. And so I learned from a YouTube coach, a mentor, and he's like, dude, you're splitting your audience when you're putting out these two completely different styles of content. You're going to be better off just creating a separate channel purely for training vlogs. And so that's why I did it, and it might be a consideration, man. And like, I'm just telling you, dude, you've built 2 million subscribers. You know exactly what you're doing with YouTube. So, if you wanted a new challenge and you wanted to put out more, organic style content, consider starting a second channel, because I would subscribe instantly.
Yeah, that's so true what you said about the splitting. That is definitely a consideration. It's the same with the podcast too, because you get people, there's no way they're going to sit through an hour, but then there are a percentage of people that absolutely love this. They're driving in the car, listening to two bros hash it out, and it's like makes them feel maybe less alone in the training journey, because it can be like if you're serious and you look around and people are inconsistent, you just can't relate to that.
Yeah, and that's a question I have for you. Because you probably know more about YouTube than I have. You've been on the platform longer. Your channel's far greater. But do you use like a bucket system when you create content? Like, do you have certain video buckets where like, all right, I'm going to make this video kind of about this topic, one video about this, one video is going to be a podcast episode. What is your content strategy, if you don't mind me asking? Because I would genuinely like to learn.
It's a little bit less sophisticated than that. I just essentially follow where my passion lies. And it's probably not the best approach. I look at what topic I haven't addressed in a while. What am I passionate about? Could I do this better? Did I not do it justice previously? Don't really chase too much trends and stuff. I mean, I could maybe optimize certain things more, but it's like, I find if I'm excited about it, whether it be a podcast guest, I mean, even if it didn't do well objectively, sometimes it's out of my control, but hell, did I enjoy making this? Yes, because you're not going to be able to make content. You're not going to be able to stick to a fitness routine if it's not something that you enjoy. And in a perfect world, it'd align exactly. My enjoyment is my job, is the greatest return on investment. Not always the case.
Dude, that's okay, man. I mean, and like this video that you post, if you post it on the podcast on your channel, it's not going to be your most viewed video, because that's not what everyone's probably follows you for. They want, the Daniel that's showing them how to do, strict pull-ups or get their one-arm pull-up or learn how to do a planche, and that's all good and great. But I think it's fantastic that you do make content that you're passionate about, that keeps you interested. And there is an audience for that. All right. And I'm only regurgitating what I've been told by the guy was named Daryl Eves. Like, he's helped Mr. Beast build his channel. Okay. And I'm just going off of what he told me to do. And so I've kind of employed a little bit of that bucket strategy where you'll like make like 5 or 6 different style of videos, and you kind of just cycle through those. And that might be one of the better ways to grow your channel, long-term sustainably. And that it may not be true in your case, but what you've done has clearly worked. But that's just something that I'm looking into. And then I want to get back into like the vlogs, but I'll probably do that on a separate channel, because I think I don't want to split my audience too much. Man, my goal is like, I want to hit 1 million subs, that's kind of where I'm at in my YouTube career. First, before I worry about that, I should probably worry about getting, 350,000, so
steps at a time. You're jumping from progressive overload to
yeah, right. Like anything, man. It's one little step at a time. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but yeah.
You're a busy man, because I know that you're also doing coaching one-on-one with people. I wanted to ask, you would have clients who get results and those that maybe don't get good gains. What are the different characteristics of the men that you see making progress versus those that don't?
So I'll just tell you purely from my experience, and it's even kind of goes into coaching and business. I tried appealing to the masses and trying to build up a big following for like 2 or 3 years, both on Instagram and YouTube, and having, I guess you call them lower ticket, coaching products, okay, that are affordable for the masses. And I tried doing that for like 2 or 3 years, and it just never really went anywhere with me. And like, content creation is not my full-time job. My coaching business is. Okay. And so I would rather work with far fewer people, but go much deeper with those people and actually coach them, write their actual workouts, review their squats, review their deadlifts, or whatever, just give them form checks and technique. And so that's the approach that I've taken with my business. And I simply use YouTube as an arm to grow my coaching business. So I work with far fewer people than you. I mean, you probably have thousands of people, on your calisthenics programs. And that works for you. And I think once you reach that tipping point where you're a big content creator, like maybe over 500,000 or 1 million subscribers, your way of doing it is the right way for you. All right. And I think that's so cool. I just personally haven't reached that point yet. And so I spend a bit more time with coaching. I spend the majority of my time, honestly, on calls, checking with clients, doing that. I work with far fewer people than you per se. But my goal is to eventually probably get to where you are. So, but that takes time. If I could be a full-time content creator like you and just, have a very successful, YouTube channel and I guess coaching business for you, you just coach far more people, and you have the right systems in place where you've been able to do that. I would like to get to that at some point, but that's the approach that I'm currently taking right now with my own coaching business. And like I said, I just use YouTube as a way to reach people. And I put out a very simple, direct, no nonsense message. And that has resonated with a lot of people. And I get the majority of my one-to-one custom coaching clients because they find me on YouTube and they like my message. It's just a different way of doing business.
Yeah, and it's nice for the clients to cut through all the noise and have a coach work with them directly because it's a plug and play type of thing. It's dynamic based on them. Off your years of experience, we can get into the whole how AI has come in to potentially change the game. But I think having that hands-on accountability, whether in person or with a coach, regular check-ins, we're still at a point where that human element and having someone keep you in line is better than a pop-up on your phone with an AI message saying, "Did you do your workout?"
Yeah, and and keep in mind, I have a different background than you. I was a personal trainer for 12 years. I've spent thousands of hours on the gym floor training people. Okay, I have. I've put the time in coaching people. And for me, because me trying to create subscription programs that really anyone can sign up to that's affordable for anyone, that didn't work for me, both from a business standpoint. And then I also kind of discovered, man, am I really helping these people? Am I really actually coaching them? Am I really getting them better? Whereas if you work with less people and you can go a little bit deeper, you can actually make a more meaningful, impact on them. But that's just a philosophical thing too. Okay. And again, what you're doing, what a guy like Jeff Nippard's doing, it's incredible. Just, there's not many guys like you, man. Not many guys have 2 million subscribers on YouTube. Does that make sense?
Just trying to have that message at scale and keep preaching the basics amidst all the marketing that is involved with having an education-based fitness business.
Yeah. Well, man, what you've done is quite remarkable. It's certainly inspiring to me.
A big part of that is habit. I mean, I don't think that I'm the most intelligent, best looking, not strongest, not any one attribute. But I think what I always try and if I'm mentoring someone, it's trying to get good at a lot of things and having your main, if you're a good communicator, have that be your main thing. But you can't be slipping on everything else. You can't not know how to market yourself. You can't not invest in yourself for learning and building those habits into our clients. I find that really rewarding to try and get people to consistently make change. That's the hardest thing.
The reason I resonate with you a lot is because you've taken the same approach with your business as you have with your own fitness and your training. It's been long. It's been hard. It's incredibly consistent. I feel like you strike me as one of these guys that anything you do it well. You do it to the best of your ability. Okay. And that doesn't happen overnight. You said you've been on YouTube since 2010. It's incredible. You've been working on this for 16 years since you were a kid, legitimately. Okay. And that's why you are where you are. So it's really, really cool to see. And like I said, I think you're one of the very few guys that is doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it because you truly want to help and impact people and you want to make the world a better place. So it's like I said, man, it's pretty cool to see.
I appreciate the kind words, man. And sometimes it can be a bit of pressure, because you've built up this standard for yourself. You try and get better as a person over the years, and then you set this bar for yourself, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta keep this up now, because like if I slip, first of all, I'm going to be disappointing myself, because we always experience more pain and discomfort when there's a loss. Because now I've got to this point, I want to keep it up for my own sense of self and pride and what I'm contributing to society, etc.
You know what's really cool, and this is just something that I would encourage you to look at it, maybe because maybe I'm a little older and I look at things a little bit differently. But man, no matter what, even if you stop today, you didn't make one more YouTube video. Dude, you've built up a catalog, a library, that people will be watching for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Okay? Like, you've actually really built something. And it's that's what I'm saying. Like, I would equate it to, like, I'm a huge fan of heavy metal. Okay? So I love bands like Metallica and Pantera. Okay? And those bands, they came out with these seminal albums 30, 40 years ago, but people are still listening to those because they're still just as good today as they were 30 or 40 years ago when they were released, And so I look at it like that, and like, you're one of these individuals that has made basically a permanent, indelible impact on the world of fitness by what you've done over the past 16 years of freaking hard ass work. And so that's another reason I love YouTube, man. YouTube is where all the serious content creators are, where all the people that are legitimate, that's where they are, So
I agree. And I think as short form content can have its pros with getting a message across in 60 seconds, but when we're bombarded with so many different conflicting like opinions, thoughts, and just the short form rabbit hole, my personal preference is to dive deeper into podcasts, in long form YouTube videos. And I think there's going to be a lot more reform happening in the future with like legislation. It's already starting with like children putting limitations on TikTok short form.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. And another reason I love YouTube is because, man, if you can capture someone's attention span for longer than 30 seconds, if you can get someone to watch a video that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes long, people really get to know you, and you build genuine trust with those people, and you become an authority, in your field. And like, dude, you probably realize this, but you are a genuine authority in the world of calisthenics because of YouTube. Okay, like, we wouldn't be on this call right now without YouTube. If you just think about that, that's simple. So it's, like I said, man, you're doing the right things. It's pretty freaking incredible.
Thanks, man. Switching gears, as much as I love the kudos and the praise.
I apologize. I'm not trying to pump you up, man. I'm just telling you the facts. That's it.
We've lost everyone, bro. I want to give some FAQs to the peeps.
I'll stop it. Yeah.
Switching to, because we both train really hard. We take this stuff seriously. We lift heavy, always trying to progress. How do you stay injury free or just mitigating pain and aches?
Well, dude, I'm probably the wrong person to ask. Like, man, I've had some really bad luck in my training career. Like, I've had a lot of surgeries and a lot of injuries, and that's probably stemmed from American football, and then competing at CrossFit at a very high level certainly didn't help anything. So I'm actually ashamed and embarrassed to say this, but I'll say it because it's the truth. I've had 17 orthopedic surgeries. So I've done both my ankles twice. I've done my knees multiple times and my shoulders, both my shoulders twice. I've ACLs, supraspinatus, my teres, also my labrum, snapped my ankles. So I've had a lot of injuries, but none of those were actually from training. They were just from kind of really bad luck or freak accidents, if that makes sense. But the way I look at training, and I look at it from a perspective of gratitude, it's like, man, I was gifted this body, okay? And I am healthy. And I think it would be a waste not to really be the best version of myself. And then I've also spent a lot of time in a wheelchair or on crutches. Like, I've spent over 3 years of my life not being able to walk under my own power. Like, I've literally been on crutches, in a walking boot, or in a wheelchair. And so when I look at training, I have a lot of gratitude just to be healthy enough to train. So I never think about working out as like, oh, I have to do this. I don't think like that. It's like, man, I fucking get to do this. All right. You don't have to work out, bro. You fucking get to. And there's people all over the world, you know, that are sick, dying, confined to wheelchairs. There's people without legs or arms, and they would give anything in the world just to be healthy enough to exercise, to be able to do a muscle up. Okay. And so whenever I feel unmotivated or tired, I think of those people, or I think of the times when I was in a wheelchair, you know, and so I'm like, man, fuck, I don't have to fucking do this. Like, I get to do it. And then what I do, man, is I'll take like 600, 800 milligrams of caffeine, and I'm serious. I'm dead serious. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll put on some loud ass Pantera.
Bit of Pantera, yeah. G up.
Dude, like, get the fuck after it. That's another reason why I resonate so much with Eric Bugenhagen too. Okay?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's how I think about it, man. So I've been able to bounce back from all of my injuries just through being very diligent with rehabilitation, maintaining a positive mindset, being thankful, and just getting after it and just being very consistent. So that's how I've handled injuries and adversity, by honestly being grateful.
Yeah, and it's just a testament to how resilient the human body can be. You hear 17 orthopedic surgeries. The old narrative was, oh, you've done one of these, you'll be cooked for life. You'll never lift the way you did again. Screw that, man.
And doctors told me that, hey, Tanner, you're never going to be able to walk or run again. You're going to have to get a total knee replacement when you're 40. You know, and I just refused to believe that. You know what I did? I found a different doctor. I found a better doctor. Okay. And I found the doctor was able to fix my knee. Like, I had a literal meniscus transplant. So like, my lateral meniscus on my knee was completely gone. I was bone on bone. And this one doctor, he's like, dude, you're fucked. That's literally what he pretty much said to me. And I just refused to believe that. So I found another doctor on YouTube, believe it or not, that does one of the most specialized, you know, meniscus transplant surgeries, where he literally implanted a cadaver meniscus in my knee and fixed my knee, you know? So having the right mindset, believing in yourself, being consistent, being disciplined, and practicing gratitude, in my opinion, is the most important thing. Okay. You're not limited by your injuries. The only thing you're limited by is your self-limiting beliefs, or your beliefs.
That mindset is going to become so key when we all get into our 50s, 60s, 70s, and we still want to work out. This is something that I'm really interested to see how the fitness industry discusses this, or just people that want to remain fit and healthy for life. At some point, you're just going to have to be grateful that you can still do pull-ups, because eventually that strength is going to diminish at some point, either through some type of setback, life circumstance, injury, or just the passage of time. And already embracing this into my 30s, and just an appreciation that I can move my body pain-free and still make progress, and getting out of that toxic, like, I'm not at this level, or how someone else is. It's like, dude, look at your own situation, adopt that attitude of gratitude, even if it sounds like some real soft woo-woo stuff. Who cares, man?
Dude, I'll tell you the truth, man. I believe in all of that stuff. Okay. Like, that's like, I don't know, I'm not really religious, but I'm a big believer in like the law of attraction and like the power of the universe. And man, the energy that you put out, the message you put out in the world, that's going to bring that back to you. Okay.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with that, because it's like, you and I wouldn't have been able to manifest having a YouTube channel, being teachers, educators, having the strength size that we've been able to build over these years relative to where we started, if in our mind we didn't think at least I can make progress. If I was pessimistic, like, oh, what's the point of starting an online business? Everyone does that. The internet's so competitive. Dude, I don't think I'm special. I have to think to myself, make yourself special.
You're not special, man. I'm not special either. Okay, you've done the fucking work. Okay, and you believe in yourself. That's the truth. Okay, because I guarantee, bro, you probably had fucking a ton of haters, especially when you were a teenager.
Oh my God, man. I've got many stories about that. Like, the landscape was very different in 2010. There was not a person taking a selfie. There wasn't anyone filming in gyms. There wasn't people uploading content to YouTube videos. You weirdo. What are you doing, man? Go outside and play with your friends instead.
Man, dude, look at you now. Okay. And that's how I think about it, dude. I remember
the day I started my YouTube channel was in March of 2022. And it was one of the worst experiences that ever happened because my entire attention on social media was purely on one platform, Instagram. My Instagram literally was taken away from me. It was disabled, ripped away from me. And my entire following was only on Instagram. And I had all my eggs in that one basket. And it was the worst but best thing that ever happened to me because then it made me realize, holy fuck, I got to get my shit together. If I want to be taken seriously in the fitness industry, I can't just be on Instagram. And then I thought to myself, dude, all of the real content creators like Jeff Nippard, like, dude, they're on fucking YouTube. Okay. And dude, Jeff Nippard, he's been building his YouTube channel for over 10 plus years. Like that guy's put the work in too. Okay. And so it inspired me to go do that myself. I was like, man, if that motherfucker can do it, so can I. Because that's how I think. That's my mindset. Okay. And so.
Yeah, there's two ways to, essentially two simple ways to look at it. You can see someone who, say in fitness, that you look up to and you're like, damn, just hate on them. Or you can look at it as inspiration. And I think that finding what you can learn from someone, something, as much as you can is such a better mindset because it elevates you by default.
It's a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. And that's something that more people need to adopt. Like, dude, anybody can be strong, lean, and jacked. Anybody can, regardless of genetics. If you're a healthy, able-bodied man, you have 2 arms and 2 legs, and you can work out, you can get better. You can be strong, lean, and jacked, regardless of genetics. Yeah, you might be capped, you might be limited, but that does not mean you can't become a better version of yourself.
Oh, so I love it so much. Yeah, and it's with our fitness training and what we eat, what we put in our body, it's one of the few things where we can heavily influence it because we're doing the training, we're putting the food in our mouth, we're deciding when to go to sleep, and it's like, well, man, you don't have that much control most of the time at your job with your friendships, how they're going to react, but like. That's what I've always enjoyed about that aspect of fitness because it's like, man, when all hell's breaking loose around me, at least I have some modicum of locus of control.
Dude, I had a really great football coach in high school, and he taught me this, and I was so lucky to learn this at a young age. The only 2 things that you always have control over in your life at any given time is your attitude and your effort. That's all you can control. Okay, your thoughts, essentially. Okay, and dude, if you change your thoughts, you will change your life. No one's a victim. Okay. Everyone. This is the great part about being alive, especially in a first world country like Australia or the United States. Dude, anybody can do this shit. Anybody can do it. You have the power of choice. You have the power of free will. Okay. And no matter whether you realize it or not, every single person is where they are in their life because of every single choice that they've made in their life up to that point. Okay. And that's a fact, man. That's just a fact. Anybody can do it. So your attitude and your effort, how you speak to yourself, do you believe in yourself? Do you not? Like, it's like that old adage. You ever heard of Henry Ford? You know, the guy on board, he said it back in whatever, 100 years ago. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Dude, that shit is real. That shit is true. That is profound. That is gospel.
Tanner, I'm fired up after this chat. That mentality at the end there is something that I'm glad that you're teaching. I'll keep embodying that myself and trying to teach others. If people want to follow your work, brother, where can they go to get you up to that 1 million subscribers?
Tanner Shuck, YouTube. Okay. If they want to follow me on Instagram, I post daily there, but YouTube's what I love the most. That's what I'm most passionate about. And that's where I feel like that's where my best content is. And that's where my message is. And that's where people can really get to know me the most. So if anyone finds me from this podcast, I'm, very thankful to you. Thankful for having me on. And it was an honor, man.
That was good fun, mate. Cheers.